So I'm going to share the screen to my camera. So what I did is I printed out our review. That way we could go through this. And I'll do these by hand on some of these, but I'll show you on the calculator also. So if I was going to graph this in, now the nice thing about this multiple choice, it don't really matter what 2 points you pick to start with. You'll get one of these 4 pictures by just plotting your points, okay? So me, I would probably choose little numbers like 0 and 1. Just plug them in for that X and see what I get. So if you put a 0 in, you'll have -2 minus 0, which is -2. Absolute value of -2 would be a +2. And then I'm going to put a 1 in there. -2 minus 1 is -3. Absolute value of -3 is a +3. So let me just make this about 3 each way. So I'm just going 3, 3, -3, -3 on this. So I had 0, 2. So 0, 2 would be right on my x-axis. Then I had 1, 3. So if I go over 1 and up 3. So notice if you pick numbers like that, you really can't tell where it's coming down, but there's only one of these 4 graphs that even has points like mine. Both of my points are up here in the positive range. Notice the only graph here that has positive values like we came up with was C. Now let's graph this on the calculator. So I'm going to go to y equals. So to get absolute value, there's 2 ways. I can hit the second and the 0 to get the absolute value. So you can hit second, 0. Absolute value is the very first thing. So you would hit enter. So I'm going to delete that. The second way to get absolute value, you would hit math. Arrow over until numbers highlighted, the second column. And number 1 is for absolute value. So hit enter. And then I had what? -2 minus x. So I got -2 minus x. So make sure you use subtraction key for the subtraction and not that negative down here, okay? All right, so we're just going to graph this and see if we get one of our 4 pictures. And y'all, pretty much what we said, we went with C on that. So let me go down here. So you notice we were right, it was C. So that comes down over here about -2 and then goes back up, okay? All right, number 2 wants me to find f of 0. So I'm going to find f of 0 when f of x equals x squared minus 5x plus 4. So f of 0 just wants me to put a 0 in for the x's. So let's see what we get. 0 squared is 0. Minus 5 times 0 is 0. Plus 4. So it looks like we're going to get a total of 4, which would be our B. All right, y'all. Number 3, they just want to know whether that's a function or not. So you're going to run a vertical line left to right over that graph. And if you notice, my vertical line never intersects the graph more than 1 time. So that is, yes, definitely a function. If it's a graph that looks like something we played with this year, then you know it's definitely going to be a function, okay? But y'all, that's all you did, just run that vertical line left to right. All right, so Question about number 4. Are any of y'all doing number 4 by hand, or are y'all just going to do that on your calculator?
I was going to do both.
All right, so I'm going to knock it out by hand, and then I'll show y'all on the calculator, okay?
Awesome.
So the first thing, let me write these numbers down here. So I've got a 5x plus 2y plus z is going to equal negative 25. 4x minus 5y minus z equals 10. 5x plus y plus 5z is going to equal negative 29. All right, let me pull my camera up just a little there so that y'all can see the whole problem. All righty, so I've now got me a system of 3 variables, which means we got to start eliminating some of these variables until we can get it down to 1. So I see a variable that I would probably eliminate first that looks the easiest to get rid of, and that would probably be those z's. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out by eliminating the z variable, okay? Now remember, it's going to take you 2 times to get rid of the z. The first time what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the first 2 rows together, and that positive z and negative z will eliminate the z doing it that way. So I'm just writing those first 2 equations. So notice when we add those, we get 9x's. 2 and negative 5 give me negative 3y. The z's canceled. And on the right side, negative 25 and 10 give me a negative 15. So that's going to be the first row of our next system of equations that's going to have 2 variables and 2 equations. So now we got to get the second set of equations to eliminate the z. So what I'm going to do, I've got to use the third row no matter what this time. So I got a positive 5z here. So I need to make one of these equal a negative 5z, which to me looks like that second row would be the easiest one to use. And I'm going to multiply everybody by 5 on that row. So multiply this row by 5, you get a 20x minus 25y minus 5z equals 50. So if you change one part of this equation, you got to change everything. So now we bring down the other row we had to use, the 5x plus y plus 5z equal negative 29. When we add them together, we're going to get rid of the z's again. So let's see what we get. 20 and 5 is 25x. Negative 25 and 1 is a negative 24y. And then 50 minus 29 is what? 21. So notice, I now have 2 equations that don't have a z variable. So let's write them down. And then my second one was 25x minus 24y equal 21. So now we got to try to eliminate one of these 2 variables. So y'all, I'm going to tell you what. I don't think I'm going to try to find a number that 9 and 25 will both go into, because that's probably a big number. I'm going to play with the 3 and the 24. I got a negative 24 here. I need to make this a positive 24 on that y. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to eliminate the y. So what I'm going to have to do, since I need to make that equal a positive 24y, I'm going to multiply that whole row by a negative 8. So y'all watch what happens. 9 times negative 8 is a negative 72y, x. So negative 72x. Negative 3 times negative 8 is a positive 24y. And then negative 8 times negative 15 is what? Positive 120. This row I didn't have to change. So 25x minus 24y equals 21. But notice what happened. The y's are now going to cancel. So let's see, what does negative 72 plus 25 gives me a negative 47x. This over here gives me a positive 141. So now that we got one variable, one equation, we're going to solve that for the x. So divide both sides by negative 47. So let's see, 141 divided by negative 47 is going to let x equal negative 3. Now that I know that x is negative 3, I'm going to go back to one of these two equations, put negative 3 in for the x and solve it for the y. So since this one had smaller numbers, I'm going to use that. I'm going to use 9 times negative 3 minus 3y is going to equal negative 15. And remember, at this point, you can choose any of them equations, okay? All right, so multiply that as negative 27 minus 3y equals negative 15. I'm going to add 27 to both sides. Negative 3y, what's that? 27 minus 15 is what, 12? And y'all divide by negative 3. So that y is a negative 4. So I know x is negative 3, y is negative 4. So I can go to any of these three original equations and solve it for the, what's left is z. Okay, so I'm going to do that first when I had 5 times x, which is negative 3, plus 2 times my y, which was negative 4, plus z equals negative 25. All right, so I'm going to move this down just a little bit. So let's see, multiplying that's negative 15. 2 and negative 4 give me negative 8 plus my z. So negative 15 and negative 8 will give us a negative 23 plus our z equals negative 25. So my last step is to add 23 to both sides. And I get z equals, let's see, negative 25 and 23 give me a negative 2. So this answer has to look like an ordered triple. The x is first. My y was what, negative 4. And then my z was a negative 2. Okay, so the trick on that is to eliminate that first variable, eliminate that second variable, and then what we say, we had negative 3, negative 4, negative 2, so that would have been a. So, Richard, that would have been the longer way to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's see what the calculator likes to do to that. So remember, on my calculator, I'm going to use the matrix. So on calculator, let me clear this screen, second mode to quit. So I'm going to use my matrix, which is over here. It says matrix blue above the x negative 1. So hit the second button, x negative 1, arrow right to edit. And when you get on edit, hit enter. So we've got a 3x4 matrix already. So I'm just going to hit enter on 3, enter on 4. Remember, it's the number of rows times the number of columns. Y'all, let me fix mine. I don't like those decimals. So I'm going to go back to mode. Remember, I had y'all estimating the 4 decimal places. to fix it from showing decimals, I'm going to hit mode. And I'm going to go back down and highlight float. So when you get on float, hit enter so that float's highlighted. So now when I go back to my matrix, watch this. I go second, x negative 1. I'm going to edit. Now I don't have all those decimals everywhere, okay? So we got a 3 by 4. It's always the rows by the columns. So my first number was a 5, enter. 2y, so I had a 2 enter. Z, so I got a 1 enter. And then negative 25. Enter and go to the next row. I had 4x, so that'd be a 4 enter. Minus 5y, so negative 5. Negative z would be negative 1. And then I had a 10. So now it's going to kick us down to the last row. So I got a 5x, so that'll be a 5 enter. Plus y, so that'll be a 1 enter. Plus 5z, so that'll be a 5 enter. And then negative 29. Now remember, after you hit that negative 29, make sure you hit enter so it kicks it up into your box up there, okay? So we put our matrix in and then we quit that screen by hitting second mode. Now just remember, that matrix is always going to be in here until you modify it or edit it in the future, okay? Now remember, I got to go to second x negative 1. This time we want to arrow right until we hit the math column. In the math column, you want to arrow down until you find RREF. When you get to RREF, hit enter. So it's going to reduce your matrix, but now you got to go back and get the matrix. So for the third time, you're going to hit second x negative 1. Now, since we edited this a while ago, that's my 3 by 4. I'm just going to hit enter. And if you always use a, you'll just hit enter on that and it'll pop it in. But y'all, here's the magic of the matrix. You hit enter. The top number is the x, the middle number is the y, the bottom number is your z. So there is our negative 3, negative 4, negative 2. Done for us, okay?
Is there any, sorry, is there any reason that mine is negative 3, negative 3, negative 2? Is my
the only way that we could check that, let's go second x negative 1. And I'm going to go over to edit and hit enter. So when you do that, see if you got these numbers like mine. 5, 2, 1, negative 25.
I had 5, 2, 2. I wrote it down wrong.
So I bet if you make that a 1 and do that again, it'll spit it out pretty quick.
All right. Will do. Matrix.
So you're looking for a negative 3, negative 4, negative 2, Richard.
And there it is.
There you go. So
Dyslexia.
well, just watch out because some of their answers, boy, they get some of these answers sort of close to those, and they might find out if y'all are just making one mistake or not on those. All right, this next one. Find the range. The range goes from the smallest y value to the biggest y value. And the range, if it's a number, will have a bracket on it. So we just got to figure out what this minimum y value is here. So if you go over here to the y-axis, that minimum y value is sitting at a negative 4. And then we want to see where the maximum y value is. So since this has endpoints on the dots, it's not going to head towards infinity, okay? So you got a dot here and a dot here. This dot is higher. So since that dot is higher, that's the y value we want to look at. And if I look on my y-axis, That looks like a 1. So my range is from -4 to 1 with a bracket. Which would be B. Okay, so don't think domain, don't think X values at all. You're only looking for the Y values, okay? All right, let's see. I'll probably have to write this one down and work it on paper. So I got 2x minus 9y is greater than -3. So I'll work that and then we'll see which graph we get, okay? Now, I will say this. As long as you solve it for y, you can graph it on that calculator, but you got to solve it no matter what for that y. So the first thing I'm going to do is subtract 2x from both sides. So I get -9y is greater. So those aren't like terms, but I always put my x's first. So I'm going to do -2x and then subtract my 3. Now I need to make that a 1y. So I'm going to divide everybody by -9. So if you see all these negatives, will make everything positive. But y'all remember, since I divided by negative, my greater than now becomes a less than. So make sure you reverse that, dividing by those negatives. So I get y is less than, that's going to make that a positive 2/9 x. And -3 and -9 makes that a positive 1/3. So let's go to the calculator because that'd be a nice way to knock this one out. So I'm going to go to y equals this time. I'm going to clear that one out. So my equation was 2 divided by 9. So I got 2 divided by 9x. And then it was plus 1/3. So plus 1 divided by 3. And we don't even have to find points to graph this. They had all the pictures already. So you just click on graph. Now, all y'all are going to see is the line, right? So what we want to do is shade this. So do y'all remember how I shaded it? I go all the way left, hit enter. So I guess I'll keep it blue. So let me go down to where it says line. Since this is less than, we want the triangle to the bottom. So there's greater than, that's less than. So come down, click OK. Now watch when I graph it. So you always want to tell it where to shade for you. Less than, the little triangle to the bottom. Greater than, I would have used the other triangle. So let's go back to the page now. So y'all remember this one's shaded bottom, going uphill left to right. So let me go to my paper. So it's shaded bottom, going uphill left to right. So the only one it could have been would have been D. Yeah, they're not too bad. It's just on these ones with the Y's, you really got to solve them for the Y just so you can knock them out, okay? All right, so it looks like we're about to draw a picture here. So we got a wall with a ladder resting on it. So let's draw a wall. And we're going to have a ladder resting on that wall. The top of the ladder touches the wall at a height of 9 feet. So over here, from the ground to where the ladder touches the wall is 9 feet. Then it says, find the length of the ladder if the length is 3 feet more than the distance from the wall. Well, here's the distance from the wall. We don't know that, so we're going to call that X. But it did tell me that the ladder was 3 feet longer, so that would be x plus 3. Now remember, we're not looking for x, which is this distance. We're looking for how long is that ladder. So when you solve it for x, you better add 3 to it to get my ladder, okay? So we got a right triangle, which means we can use the Pythagorean theorem. Pythagorean theorem says a squared plus b squared equals c squared. It don't matter who A and B are, but C has to be that longest side. So I'm going to let x equal my A. So that's going to give me x squared. 9 can be my B. So that'll be 9 squared. That's going to equal to C squared, which is the x plus 3 squared. So y'all with me on that? Now, x squared is going to stay x squared. 9 squared is going to be 9 times 9 is 81. So what we need to do is FOIL that out and see what we get. So if we FOIL out x plus 3 times x plus 3, we get an x squared plus a 3x plus 3x plus 9. And I'm going to add like terms. So I get an x squared plus 6x plus 9. So that goes on the right side. X squared plus 6x plus 9. So now we need to solve this. So your first move should be to move the x squareds and get them on one side because it's quadratic. So I'm going to subtract the x squared from that side and move it over here. But if you notice, the x squareds cancel on both sides. So all that's left is a 6x plus 9. So this was sort of nice with the x squareds canceling because that means it's no longer quadratic and all we got to do is solve for the x. So we would subtract 9. So I get 72 equals 6x. And y'all last step, divide by 6. So that's going to give me x. And let's see, 72 divided by 6 is 12. But remember, we don't care about the x side. We wanted the ladder. So the ladder will be 12 plus 3, which would give us 15, okay? So y'all, let me look on my page here. We said 15, so that would be RB. So 7 sort of tricky, and then the one I did a while ago, I think was 4 with the big system of equations. That is sort of tricky. Now this one says, find a domain, write it in interval notation. So y'all should definitely be good at a domain by now. So the trick is to take the bottom of the fraction, set equal to 0. Now, if you solve this using quad, you're going to use a equals 1, b equals 7, c equals 0 since you don't have a number on this, okay? I'll probably solve this by factoring because notice both of these have an x in them. So I'm going to factor out an x, and that'll leave me an x plus 7 in my parentheses. And then I would just set both of these equal to 0. The second one I would solve by subtracting 7. So I get x is a negative 7. So I got a 0 and a negative 7, which means I got to kick them out of my domain. So my domain will start at negative infinity. Going left to right, I would hit negative 7. Union around negative 7 until I hit the 0. Union around that 0 till we hit positive infinity. So let's see which one has our numbers. Now watch out, they put a 9 on this one, but you don't even care what's on top. Only worry about the bottom, which would have been for us, it looks like A. So domain, denominator only. All right, I think this one I'll probably have to write. So we're giving you the difference quotient formula. What we got to do is construct it and simplify. So let's see what f of x is. F of x is going to be 9x squared plus 7x. So we're about to construct the difference quotient. So we got f of x already. They gave it to us. The bottom's always h. So what we got to find is the fx plus h. So to find f of x plus h, we need to take f of x and put x plus h in for both of those x's. So that'll be 9 times x plus h squared plus 7 times x plus h. So the first thing I got to do is FOIL this thing out and see what that's going to give me. So did anybody save their notes from test 3? Because you got that on there.
Oh, yeah.
And every time we FOILed out that x plus h squared, you should have got an x squared plus 2hx's plus h squared. So save that for your test right there, okay? Because you're going to be putting it in right here. All righty, so now that we FOILed that and put it in here, we're going to distribute the 9 and then distribute that 7. So I get 9x squared. What's that? 18hx, 9h squared. That's going to give me 7x, and then plus my 7h. There are no like terms. So all of that is now the f of x plus h. So I'm going to put all that into our little formula. But y'all, if you remember, anything that we just found in this long polynomial, if it don't have an h in it, it's going to cancel with the f of x stuff. So let's put all that in here and I'll show you. Now f of x they gave me, that was 9x squared plus 7x. And remember, both of these are being subtracted. So 9x squared minus 9x squared cancels. You got a 7x here minus 7x cancels. After that step, you should only have things in the first parentheses and they better have an h with them, okay? So bring down what's left. 18hx plus 9h squared plus 7h, all divided by h. And your last step was to divide 1h out of everything on top. So if you divide that h out, you got an 18x plus 9. Divide 1h out of an h squared, that's going to leave you 1h. And then that's going to be plus 7. Them h's cancel. So that is our final answer. So we would come over here hoping to find the 18x plus a 9h plus 7. So y'all, that one's tricky, but if you can get the f of x plus h part, you got this problem whooped, okay? All right, so let's see. This one says graph the function of f of x equals square root of x minus 2. So remember, the basic graph starts in the middle and goes like that. So the question is, what's that -2 doing to my graph? So anytime I attack those x's and they're like in parentheses, it's moving me what, left or right? So when you add, it's actually going to move it right. So our picture should have this little graph move to the right 2 units. I'll let me that one in real quick. So this one went left, this one went down, this one went right, this one went left and flip. So we would have to go with C. So let's graph that and see if we're right. Now notice, they're going to 20s on this. So I'm going to show you how to set your calculator to do 20. All right, so I'm on y equals, so I'm going to clear that one out. Now remember, I don't want this to shade, so I'm going to arrow left on mine and hit enter. And then arrow down until that goes back to the line. So I'm going to go right. So I want mine back on the line, and then I'm going to go to OK. All righty, so I just wanted to graph a line, not a shading again. So this was the square root of x minus 2. So go to the front. Square root's blue, so hit the second button and the x squared button. Let me get over there. Second button, x squared, get my radical. And then underneath I had what, x minus 2. So x minus 2. Now I'm going to go to window and set mine x minimum to -20. Enter. X max positive 20. Enter. And then I'm going to go down here to y minimum, make that a -20. And y maximum a positive 20. So now our graph should really, really look like one of theirs when we hit graph. And y'all, there it is. That's that C we picked. Now, if you want your 10 by 10 back on your graph, instead of those 20s we set, hit zoom. Number 6 is standard. And that'll turn it back into a 10 by 10. But either way you go, you can tell what happened on that graph, right? It definitely moved to the right. All righty. Number 11, find any relative max or relative minimum. Well, you see this little hump right here, that's a relative max. And this little valley here is a relative minimum. So look at these answers. Relative max, this one says none, so it cannot be that answer. This one says relative max of 1 at x equals 0. Well, that has a max of 1 at x equals 0. Relative minimum of -3 at x equals 2. Well, that's a -3 at x equals 2. So it looks like B is going to be our answer. Now this one had relative maximum, so they're getting the max and mins backwards on C. And then D is saying you don't have a minimum. But you do have one of each. So just find this answer that corresponds to what you got. But be careful of them reversing stuff on you, okay? That's how they get y'all on these, is they sort of reverse the way the stuff are. All right, and let's see this. I think we can see everything here. How can the graph of f of x equals negative x minus 2 squared plus 7 be obtained from the graph of y equals x squared? So you're starting with this basic graph. So if you notice, there's 3 things happening here. You got that negative, you got that 2 being subtracted, and you got that 7 being added. So this negative out front is going to reflect over the x-axis. Okay, so remember on this problem, if it says reflect over the y-axis, you might as well cancel those answers, okay? Because we didn't learn that until we got into the chapter 9 exponential graphs. Subtracting 2 from the x inside parentheses is going to move me right 2 units. And then adding 7 at the end is going to move up 7 units. So let's see what we got. So we went right 2. So A, B, A, C, and D have right 2. Reflected across to X. Down here, they put Y's on those. So those are both definitely wrong. And then we said shifted 7 units up. So we would have to go with A. So y'all just find your moves, and one of these answers will match up with what you're finding, okay? You don't have to graph these. That's the nice thing. All right, finding zeros. And you see all these answers got radicals. So I bet if you're going to do this by hand, you're going to use the quadratic formula, which is negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. Now, you have a program for this. A is 2, B is 9, C is 3. It'll kick that out pretty quick. So let's put 9s in for the B's. A was 2, so that's going to go there and there. And C was 3. All right, but I always like doing this one by hand. So I got negative 9 plus or minus. 9 squared is 81. There's only one negative over there, so that'll stay negative. And that looks like 8. 8 times 3 is what? 24. All of that over 2 times 2, which is 4. So we're getting there. Next, we're going to subtract that. So I get a negative 9 plus or minus. 81 minus 24 is 57 all over 4. And y'all, there's 57. Let's see. I think 19 times 3 is 57, but none of those have square roots. So there's no perfect square factors in 57. So that would be the final answer. And that's what quad should give you, is that answer right there. Remember, if you get decimals on quad, hit enter one more time to get these radicals. So be careful, because that one had a 2 on the bottom. We need the one with the 4 on the bottom. So we're going to go with C. And the reason they got, oh, I don't know, somehow they must have got 75 to get these 3s under here. They must thought y'all was like dyslexic on the 57 or something, maybe. All righty, so I'll show you real quick on my calculator. So clear that. So program, go down to quad, enter on it, enter again to get it going. Oh, did I hit the wrong one? I must have hit that's in div one. So there's quad, so let me get on that. All right, so quad A was 2, B was 9, C was 3. Enter. Like I said, we don't want decimals, so hit enter one more time. And there's your negative 9 plus or minus square root of 57 over 4. All right, find the vertex. So that's where I had to find the negative b over 2a, f of negative b over 2a. So first I'm going to find the x coordinate by doing negative b over 2a. So b is 32, so that's going to be a negative 32 over 2 times a, which is 4. So let's see, that's what, 8 on the bottom. So negative 32 divided by 8 gives me a negative 4. So I know the x coordinate will be negative 4. Y'all look at these 4 answers. I got a 4, a 68, a negative 68, negative 4. At this point, you know the answer better be D. But if you want to get the y coordinate, you would find f of that -4. So that'll be 4 times -4 squared plus 32 times -4 minus 4. Punch that in your calculator. It will spit out a -68. So we was right on D. So on that question, you just got to be able to find that x coordinate, and then you got your answer, okay? Because they do this every time on those. All right, let's see what we got next. Find the zeros and the multiplicity. So you're only worried about factors up here that have a variable. So this 2 does not have a variable, so you not want to cross that one out. The only 2 factors with a variable is an x plus 7. I'm going to set equal to 0. And an x minus 7. I'm going to set equal to 0. Solve both of those. So you get x is a -7. And then this one, x is a +7. The multiplicities are these exponents. So the -7 0 came from the x plus 7 factor, which has a multiplicity of 2. The 7 came from the x minus 7 factor, and it had a multiplicity of 3. So I want a -7, 2. So there's no way it can be A or C because they got 4 somehow. So let's see what this one has. -7, 2, 7, 3. Looks like what I need. This one, they just mixed up the multiplicities on it. So be really careful looking at them answers on those, okay? All righty, on this one, I just want you to graph it. So I'm going to go to my calculator and show you how to set the window. They're at -240 and 240 on this one. It looks like they're going out -6, +6. Now, we'll say this. You can figure out the basic graph of this because guess what? Multiplicity 2 means you got 2 x's here. Multiplicity 2 means you got 2 x's there. That's 4. This one makes 5. So that's like an x to the 5th. And look at here. You got a negative times all these positives is going to make that negative. When your degree was odd and your lead coefficient was negative, it should go downhill left to right. And remember, we had that little chart. You had the degree and the lead coefficients on it. So notice, going downhill, it can only be either B or D. So we need to see, is everything happening on this left side or is everything happening on that right side? So I'm going to go to my calculator. So let me show you, we're going to graph this. So let's go to y equals. I'm going to clear out that. So I had a -x. So -x, parentheses, x plus 1, close parentheses and square that one. And then parentheses, x minus 4, close parentheses, and square that one. So the window needs to go from -6 to 6 on the x's. So I'm going to go -6, enter, +6, enter. Arrow down to the y, it goes from -240 to a +240. So now that I got my window set, I'm going to hit graph. So notice mine has all the stuff happening on the right side, very short on the left side. So let's go back to our picture. So I would go with B because mine had that little gap there and then all the stuff happening on that right side. So let's click. Oh, I got to mark it on my paper. I'm trying to click it with my mouse. All right, plus the zero would have the X would have an exponent of 1. So the 0 has to pass through the 0, which B did. And looks like it didn't pass all the way through that one there, okay? At -1, it would be tangent. So both of them were sort of tangent. At +4, it would be tangent. But this one didn't even have nothing at the +4, okay? So you can sort of play with them and see where you should be at, but y'all graphing them knocks it out quick, okay? All righty, find the vertical asymptotes. To find the vertical asymptotes, I take that bottom and set it equal to 0, just like I do the domain. All right, it's already factored, so set each of these factors equal to 0 and solve those. So you're going to add 5, and then we're going to subtract 4. So x equals 5, x equals -4 are my vertical asymptotes. Now watch out, look at that B. They got Y's there.
Can you scoot your paper up a little bit?
Move it up. All right, are y'all seeing it?
I think it might be frozen.
Oh, okay. So let me stop the share and reshare. All right, so let me reshare that. All right, y'all seeing it now?
Yes.
Okay. So what I was saying, once you solve these, it's already factored on the bottom. So once you solve it and get your two numbers, make sure over here you find those X's. Because they got a B here that's got y equals 5, y equals -4. Remember, the Y's were the horizontal asymptotes. Since we're doing vertical, it's got to be X's, okay? All right, let's see here, find a requested value. They want me to find G compose F of 6. So this is like doing a G of F of 6. So you got to put the 6 into the F first. So my F equation, I'm going to be finding F of 6, which will be -3 times 6 plus 2. So that gives me -18 plus 2, which is a -16. So now F of 6 gave me 16. That -16 goes into the G equation. So G was -2 times -16 squared minus 2 times -16 plus 5. All right, so I'll do this by hand. -2, 16 times 16 is 256. And I'm just going to bring everything else down. Next, I'm going to multiply everybody. -2 times 256 is a -512. -2 times -16 is a +32 plus 5. If you add all these up, you should end up with a -475. So that looks like D on that one. And y'all, this next one is the same thing, but we didn't give you a number this time. So it's still going to be like finding G of F of X. So first we would get F of X. F of X equals -3x plus 5. Since I didn't give you a number in that, you cannot do nothing to that. So that whole thing now goes into the G equation. So you're going to find G of a -3x plus 5. So take this G equation, which is 5, times x, which is -3x plus 5. At the end is a plus 9. So notice 5x plus 9, it still looks like a g, but it's got the f for its x. All right, distribute to 5, I get a negative 15x plus 25 plus my 9. Only thing we can do is add those numbers. So we get negative 15x, 25 and 9 give us what? 34. So let's see, we want D, negative 15x plus our 34. So y'all be careful on these. Your final should be in the same order that I did mine, g of f of x, okay? All right, let me put this number 20. It says determine if it's 1-to-1. If it's 1-to-1, find the formula for the inverse. Guess what? No matter what version you got, it's going to be 1-to-1. So you better not mark C. If you mark C, you're giving me 5 points no matter what, okay? So f of x, so that means we will find the inverse on this no matter what. So y'all would be better hit just to click A, B, or D than you would be hitting that C, okay? At least then you would have a 1 in 3 shot of getting it right. All righty, so to find the inverse, we had to turn this f of x into a y. So do y'all remember what I did next? So y'all slept since that test, huh? So next you're going to switch that x and y around so that you get x equals 8y minus 6. Now solve it for that y. So here we had to switch, remember. So switch x and y, now solve. So to solve that, we're going to add 6 to both sides. So I get x plus 6 equals 8y. Then you're going to divide both sides by 8. So take that x plus 6, divide that whole thing by 8, and then the 8y divided by 8. So here them 8's will cancel. You cannot simplify that any further. So come over here and find the x plus 6 divided by 8. Be careful of this one. All they did was divide the x by the 8, but you got to divide that whole side by that 8, okay? All right, so we're doing pretty good on time. I only got about 5 more of these. So this one says graph the function.
I'm sorry,
Yep.
can you go back just for a second on that one?
The one I just had. Okay.
So it should be the entire x plus 6 over 8.
Yes.
Okay.
Because remember you had to divide both sides by it, so you're dividing that whole side by that 8, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Now, the only way it could have looked like that first answer, it would have had the x over 8 plus the 6 over 8. You can split them apart as long as they both would have been over that 8, okay? All right, so the basic graphs of these exponentials, remember, they sort of tried to hug that x-axis, crossed at 1 and went uphill. So we need to see what all these moves are doing to my graph. So the 2 moves you got are that plus 3 hitting that x there, that plus 2 at the end. The plus 3 is going to move my graph left 3 units. So I'm going to go left 3 units. If that's negative, it would have went right. Now the plus 2 at the end, anytime you add 2 to the end of a function, it's going to move it up 2. So it's going to go up 2 units. So knowing that, look, this first graph went down. Oh, but this second graph, it did go up and it went left. The third graph looks like it went right and down. And then the fourth one went right and up. So since we went left 3 and up 2, we would have to pick B, which I'm going to graph this so you see that one, okay? So notice their window is 6s on this one. Everything's 6 and -6. So I'm going to actually do that on my calculator. So y equals, clear this one out. So I had 5 as my base. And then I'm going to hit my exponent. I had an x plus 3. And I'm going to arrow down. If you got an old calculator, when you do the exponent, put in the x plus 3 in parentheses and close them. And then come out and do your plus 2. All right, so I'm going to fix that window so it looks just like one of their pictures. Also, I still had the -6, 6 from while ago, so I'm going to arrow down until I get to that y minimum, make that a -6, and then that y max, +6. So now that I've done that, my graph should look just like one of theirs. So y'all, it looks like the one we picked, which was RB. Notice it went left and up. Now remember, if you want to go back to regular 10 by 10, hit zoom, 6 for standard. And if you used it on the 10 by 10, you still can tell it went left and up, right? So that's one nice thing. You don't technically have to change the windows, but if you do, it makes it look more like theirs. All right, then we got into all the exponential and logarithmic. This one wants me to convert to an exponential equation. So let's see, the base is 5. So that's going to be the base. The exponent is the t. And that's going to equal that result of 125. So just remember that this whole logarithm finds the exponent. So that's why we make the t the exponent when we write it as exponential. So let's see, do we got that? So that was already part A, okay? Be careful, they like to mix these t's and 5s up. They want to have every combination that looks like, okay? All right, 23. When I rewrite this with logs, if it's on top, it's positive. If it's on bottom, it'll be negative. So I'm going to do the log of x to the third plus the log of z. Those two factors are on top, they're positive, minus the log of y to the fifth. That one was on bottom, so it's a negative log. Now, we got to bring all our exponents down to the front. So I get a 3 log x plus my log z minus, what's that, 5 log y. Cannot go no further, so hopefully they got that over here. So what I get, 3 log x plus a log z minus, so it looks like A. Be careful for B because they put a multiply there, not a positive, okay? And if you go real quick and you hit that one with the multiply instead of the addition, that thing will mark y'all wrong, okay? Okay, so let me explain 24. 24 is a problem that matches those interest type problems we was doing in Math Lab, but we couldn't find a question in there where we just did the formula. So we put this formula in there. All we got to do is plug in for the t, whatever years they gave us. So this one, you'll just punch it straight on your calculator. So let me go over here and I'll show you how I punch that in. So we just wanted to make sure you could plug in a variable for this kind of equation. So they gave you 2,400,000. E with an exponent. So you're going to hit second ln and use that E that has the exponent there. And then it was 0.03 times the T. Well, they said after 1 year, so T will be 1. So the only thing changing on this formula should be whatever T you're putting in, okay? 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever. Now it's an increase, and so your population better go up. Rounding this to the nearest person, looks like 2,473,09. Since that zero's got an 8 after it, I'm going to make that a 91. So y'all come over here. And the one that matched that answer that I got was a 91 would be B. So we didn't want y'all to have to come up with formulas on your own for the final. So we didn't want to put the little girl birthday party on there. And we didn't care about investments after 0, 5, 10, 20 years and stuff. So we just wanted to use a simple formula that y'all could plug in and get me an answer, okay? All righty, then there was one. They know it's going to be some kind of equation. So solve the exponential equation. So 2 raised to the 10 minus 2x equals 64. The trick on this one is to rewrite 64 using a base of 2. Whatever number's on the left side, try to rewrite that number on the right side using that as a base. So watch this. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16, times 2 is 32, times 2 is 64. I did that 6 times. So I'm going to rewrite 64 as 2 to the 6th power. So I got 2 to the 10 minus 2x equals 2 to the 6th power. Now, since we was able to do that, my bases match. The bases match, that means the exponents have to be equal. So 10 minus 2x has to equal my 6. All right, solve that for that x. So I'm going to subtract 10. I get negative 2x is a negative 4. Dividing both of them by negative 2. I get my x. The negatives cancel, and 4 divided by 2 is a 2. So if you put that 2 in, that gives you 4. 10 minus 4 is 6. 2 to the 6th power does equal 64. So say you're doing this problem and you don't know how to rewrite 64 using a base 2. Or the only other option is to take LNs of both sides. So this would be way number 2 to do the problem, okay? So say you don't realize you can rewrite 64 using a 2. You can take LNs of both sides. Right, because the LN, I was able to bring this down to the front. So that's going to give me 10 minus 2x times the ln of 2 equals the ln 64. Divide both sides by ln of 2. So I get 10 minus 2x equals, and y'all watch this. If you did the ln of 64 on your calculator, divided by the ln of 2, that's going to give you a 6. Now, if you do this on the calculator at this point, make sure you close those parentheses before you do that division, okay? But look here, 10 minus 2x equals 6. Look what I had over here a while ago. 10 minus 2x equals 6. So either way, you'll get to do that. You'll get to that point that I just got to, and then divide by that -2, and get x is a 2. So remember, if you're not able to rewrite it at the same base, which is probably a little easier, you can take the LNs of both sides, bring down the exponent, and start dividing that stuff out, okay? All righty, so let's see. Oh, that was 25, y'all, so that is it. So, final exam, everything due by Thursday night at midnight. I also sent y'all an email yesterday with a review for test 4. It had a bonus for y'all to do on it also. So it was pretty easy bonus, I think. So y'all I sent out other versions of a study guide earlier today, but I'm going to get this and upload it in YouTube and send y'all a link for it. Because we did a little bit more on this that I didn't do on my other videos. So I'm definitely going to send this one out. So any more questions?
I don't.
So y'all, this really will be our last class. So y'all are actually a pretty good class. Y'all responded and stuff. That's what we like. We don't like talking and hearing a lot of chirping, you know. So y'all did good. So I'll stop this recording.